Welcome to our channel. I'm so glad you're here today to hear a special story that will tug at your heartstrings. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from our global community. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss our next unforgettable tale coming tomorrow. We've got plenty more stories lined up just for you. Grab a seat, get comfortable, and let's get started. What happens when lost love waits for 50 years? Find out. Sarah, a 72-year-old woman, spent her days in peaceful solitude. After the death of her husband years ago, the quiet of her home became both a comfort and a reminder of what she had lost. She had no children, and her days were filled with simple routines, each one much like the last. Her only companion was Max, her loyal German shepherd. He was her constant, her friend, and the one living being who seemed to understand her silence. Together, they had spent countless days walking through the quiet streets, the autumn breeze rustling the fallen leaves. But Sarah's life was still filled with an emptiness she couldn't fill. One crisp afternoon, as Sarah stepped outside to check the mailbox, Max began acting strangely. He sniffed at the ground with an intensity that Sarah had never seen before. His eyes were wide, his tail stiff, and he whined, digging frantically at a small patch of earth near the gate. Sarah, initially puzzled, knelt down to see what was causing his agitation. "What did you find, boy?" she asked, her voice soft as she gently patted his head. Max, however, did not stop. He kept digging, determined to unearth something. Sarah watched, feeling a flicker of curiosity rise within her. The ground, still soft from the fall rains, gave way easily as she brushed the dirt aside. Then, there it was, an old envelope, yellowed with age, its edges worn and delicate. It seemed almost surreal, as if it didn't belong in the world she knew. With trembling hands, Sarah turned it over. Her breath caught in her throat when she saw her name on the front, written in a handwriting she knew all too well. It had been 50 years since she had seen that handwriting, yet the connection to her past was undeniable. Slowly, she opened the envelope, her heart pounding in her chest, as if bracing for something that had been buried for decades. Inside was a letter written by Jack, her first love. The words on the page were as familiar as her own heartbeat. As she read, her mind raced back to a time when everything had seemed possible, when love had promised to change her life forever. The next day, as the golden light of the afternoon filtered through the trees, Max's strange behavior continued. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something important was happening, something she couldn't yet understand. As she stepped outside to check the mail once again, there he was. Max, his nose pressed to the ground, his body tense with excitement. He sniffed, then pawed at the dirt, as if urging her to pay attention. His whines grew louder, more insistent, and Sarah felt a strange pull in her chest. She walked over to him, her heart quickening as she knelt down beside him. "What's got you so worked up, Max?" she whispered. But he didn't answer, of course. For a moment, Sarah hesitated. She hadn't planned on digging up the yard. It seemed absurd, and yet there was something about the way Max behaved that left her no choice. She brushed her fingers through the dirt, her curiosity building. Max's paws were relentless as he continued to scrape the earth, as if he had found something, something that had been waiting for decades. And then, there it was. A faint outline of an envelope, its edges frayed with age. The yellowed paper, so out of place in the moment, lay half buried, as though it had been waiting to be discovered. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She knew, without a doubt, that this wasn't just some old piece of junk. This was something more, something that belonged to her past, something she hadn't thought about in years. With trembling fingers, she carefully unearthed the letter, feeling the weight of it in her hands. The paper was thick, almost waxy, and it had held up against time, dirt, and the elements. Sarah's pulse raced as she turned it over, the familiar handwriting on the front taking her back to another life, another time. The ink was faded, but it was still legible. Her name, written in Jack's hand. A wave of memories rushed over her, and for the first time in a long time, she felt something stir in her chest. She hadn't thought about Jack in years, not since that painful, foolish misunderstanding that had driven them apart. She had convinced herself he'd forgotten her, moved on with his life. But now, as the letter sat in her hands, she realized that maybe, just maybe, Jack had never stopped waiting. Sarah sat there for a moment, staring at the letter in her hands, unable to comprehend what she had just uncovered. The years seemed to fade away as the paper crinkled under her fingers, and for a second, she could almost feel the weight of her younger self, full of hope and uncertainty. The envelope was thick, sturdy, its yellowed edges worn from time. But it wasn't just the passage of time that had caused its age, it was the memories within it, locked away for so long. She had been so sure that those memories were behind her, that Jack was just a faded chapter in her life. But now the words on that page called to her, as if demanding to be heard. With trembling hands, Sarah slowly opened the letter. She could feel her heart racing as she unfolded the fragile paper, its edges curled from age. The ink was faint, but still clear enough to read. Mary, if you still love me, meet me at the train station on Friday evening. I will wait. If you don't come, I will understand. But if there is anything left, give me a sign. I won't leave until I see you. Forever yours, Jack. The words hit her like a wave, crashing over her chest, her breath caught in her throat. She had never forgotten Jack, but she had convinced herself he had moved on. She thought he had forgotten her too, and the years had only made the pain of their separation duller. But now, this letter, this lost message from the past, brought everything rushing back. It was as if the years had melted away and she was once again that young woman, torn between love and fear, standing at a crossroads she could never cross. She had believed in the silence, convinced that Jack had let go, but now she knew he hadn't. He had waited, week after week, year after year, at that same station, hoping that she would show up. And she hadn't, not once. As Sarah stood up, holding the letter to her chest, she felt a sudden, overwhelming urge to go to that train station. The thought of Jack waiting there all those years, still holding onto a love that she had let slip through her fingers, was too much. The letter had found its way to her after 50 years, and now she had to see where it would lead. There was no more hesitation, no more wondering. The time had come to without another thought, Sarah gathered herself and set out. She didn't know what she expected to find at the train station, but she couldn't ignore the pull of the past any longer. The letter had awakened something in her, something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. She drove through the winding streets, her mind racing with questions, memories, and hopes she had long buried. Was Jack still there, waiting for her? Or had time finally swept him away, just as it had swept everything else? When she arrived at the station, the evening sky was tinged with the soft hues of twilight. The platform was nearly empty, save for a few scattered travelers rushing home. Sarah's heart beat louder in her chest, the quiet surroundings only amplifying the nervous energy that had built up inside her. She walked slowly, her eyes scanning the empty benches, hoping, no, praying, that she would see him. That familiar face, the face she hadn't seen in over 50 years. And then, as if time itself had paused, she saw him. Sitting on the bench, hunched over with age, but still carrying that same quiet presence she remembered so well. His hair was thin, his face weathered by time, but his eyes, those eyes were unmistakable. Jack. He was looking at her, not with surprise, but with a quiet acceptance, as though he had known, all along, that she would come. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. He was here. After all these years, he was here. Mary, he said, his voice trembling with emotion, as if the weight of the years had finally caught up with him. She could barely speak, her heart too full of regret and relief. She stepped closer, her hands shaking as she covered her mouth to hold back the tears that threatened to spill. Jack looked at her, his expression softening. I waited, he said simply. Every Friday, I waited. His words were both a confession and a quiet triumph. He had waited for her all these years, for a love that never truly faded, no matter how far apart they had been. Mary grasped his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. I'm sorry I was late, she whispered, her voice breaking. Jack smiled gently, his grip tightening around hers. But you came. And that was all that mattered. After decades of waiting, all that was left was the moment they finally As Sarah took Jack's hand, the weight of the years, the regrets, and the missed chances seemed to dissolve in that one simple touch. She felt the roughness of his weathered skin, the years of waiting, of hoping, all pressed into that moment. Her heart ached with the knowledge of what they had lost, but there was also a sense of peace. They were together now, finally, after all this time. Jack looked at her with a soft, understanding smile, his eyes filled with emotions Sarah couldn't quite put into words. He had waited, and all these years, he never stopped hoping. His heart had never strayed. And now, in the dimming light of the train station, it was as if time had folded back on itself, erasing the decades apart and returning them to that moment in their youth when everything seemed possible. "I'm sorry I didn't come sooner," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Her mind raced back to that day, so many years ago, when she had convinced herself that Jack had forgotten her. She had believed he had moved on, built a life without her. Yet here he was, sitting before her, the same man who had waited, year after year, never giving up hope. The realization hit her like a punch in the gut. She had been wrong. Jack squeezed her hand gently, his grip warm, steady. "You came," his voice low and full of emotion. "That's all that matters." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she looked at him, feeling the deep ache of lost time. "I didn't know. I thought you had forgotten me," she choked out, her breath shaky. Jack smiled, a tender, bittersweet smile. "I never forgot. Not for a single day. I knew you'd come, someday." As Sarah sat beside him on that weathered bench, the train station felt like the most sacred place in the world. It was where they had been meant to meet all those years ago, but life had pulled them in different directions. But now, here in the twilight of their lives, they had found each other again. For Sarah, the journey had been long, filled with regret and unspoken words. But as she sat beside Jack, her heart felt lighter than it had in years. They had missed so much, but at least they had this moment where the years could fade into the background, and love, long buried, could bloom again. There was no more waiting. They had finally come together, and that, at long last, was enough. We hope you enjoyed this heartfelt reunion as much as we did. This story of lost love and unexpected second chances is a reminder that sometimes time doesn't erase everything. It just gives us a chance to reflect, learn, and grow. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this beautiful tale of waiting, regret, and redemption. Have you ever experienced a moment in your life when time and distance couldn't erase the connection you had with someone? Maybe a reunion or a chance encounter changed everything for you. Share your own stories in the comments below. We truly value hearing from you. Your experiences and reflections mean the world to us. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We've got so many more stories coming your way that will tug at your heartstrings. We also encourage you to give this video a thumbs up if it resonated with you and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next unforgettable story we'll be sharing tomorrow. Thank you for being part of our community. Your support makes this journey even more meaningful. Let's continue this conversation in the comments. We can't wait to read your thoughts.